Yesterday we have seen about the nine quadrants of the abdomen, then the peritoneal layers, and now we are going to move forward with the folds of peritoneum. Okay, so the folds of peritoneum, which we are going to see over here, is so the folds of peritoneum are written that there are both types of organs in folds of peritoneum, both mobile and immobile. So as we know, there are both types of there are both types of organs which are present. One are mobile organs and other are immobile organs. So what are mobile and what are immobile organs is, the mobile organs are the ones which are actually they can move from their position, while immobile are the ones which cannot move. Okay, now moving forward, there are certain kinds of differentiations which are present over here. So, okay, intraperitoneal, peritoneal. So, what is intraperitoneal, peritoneal? So, intraperitoneal peritoneum means that the organs are surrounded by the peritoneum all around. Okay. Now, suppose there is this organ which is present. This is an organ present, and suppose it is surrounded by surrounded by a layer of peritoneum. Okay, so this particular type of an organ is known as what is known as intraperitoneal peritoneum. Fine. Now, next is partially covered peritoneum. Partially covered peritoneum means organs which are partially covered by the peritoneum. Okay. So the first examples of intraperitoneal organs are stomach, jejunum, ileum, cecum, appendix. So these are certain types of the organs which are entirely covered by the peritoneum. Now secondly, there are partially covered organs which are partially covered by the peritoneum. Just say there is ascending colon, there is descending colon, there is rectum. So these are certain ones which are being covered by partially covered by the peritoneum. Next is retroperitoneal. Retroperitoneal. Now the word retro over here means back. Retro means piche. So retroperitoneal means the peritoneum is present only on one side of the organ. Means आगे से peritoneum रहेगा. This is the peritoneum on the anterior side of an organ, and पीछे से there will be organ present. So this organ will be covered by the peritoneum only on the anterior side. That is only on the one side. So it is one side of the organ. Fine. So ऐसे कौन से organs हैं? So there is this classical example: duodenum, pancreas, kidney, ureters, and suprarenal glands. So all of these are retroperitoneal organs. Fine. Then fourth type is subperitoneum. Subperitoneum means, what is subperitoneum? So subperitoneum means inferior to the peritoneal cavity. Okay? The peritoneum that is lying inferior to the peritoneal cavity. For example, urinary bladder. So one by one we'll see. Pehla hai, as you can see over here in the diagram, this is parietal peritoneum, which we have discussed yesterday. The parietal peritoneum. Parietal peritoneum is the one which is covering the outer side of the abdominal cavity, while this is the visceral peritoneum, which is covering the viscera all around, and in between this parietal peritoneum and visceral peritoneum there is this space which is filled over here, that is known as peritoneal cavity. Apart from the mobility, peritoneum folds provide pathway for the vessel. So basically, what are these peritoneal folds actually doing is they provide a kind of mobility. Suppose this is a organ, this is an organ present. So this organ is being suspended by this particular fold. So the fold over here is functioning as a part which is providing mobility to a particular organ. So apart from mobility, peritoneum folds provide pathway for the vessel, nerves and the lymphatics. Fine. So there are certain examples. Jैसे first is mesentery. What is mesentery? The fold that is suspending the small intestine or the enteron is known as mesentery. The fold that is suspending the part of a colon is known as a mesocolon. वैसे ही a large peritoneum fold that is attached to the stomach is known as omentum. It is known as omentum. So this is about folds of peritoneum, first part. Now ligaments. What are ligaments is? So double layered fold of peritoneum that connects the organ to the abdominal wall or to each other. A double layer fold of peritoneum that connects organs to abdominal walls. Very important line. The pun that connects organ to the abdominal wall or to each other. Means the organ is being connected to this abdominal wall. This is the abdominal wall, and the organ is connected to this abdominal wall, or that organ might be connected to another organ. Suppose this is another organ. So the one that is connecting these two organs is also known as a ligament. Okay. Suppose this is one organ and this is another organ. So the ligament in between that is connecting these both two ligaments is known as the ligament. Okay. Now these folds are ligaments. जैसे gastrosplenic ligament. So the word itself says that gastro means stomach and splenic means spleen. So the ligament that is connecting the stomach to the spleen is known as gastrosplenic ligament that connects stomach to the spleen. Fine. So peritoneal folds. As you can see over here, this is an abdominal cavity and this is the viscera. So the one that is connecting the viscera to the abdominal cavity is known as the abdominal fold. Fine. Now peritoneal cavity. So peritoneal cavity as a whole is again divided into two parts. So one is the greater sac and another one is the lesser sac. So what is greater sac? What is lesser sac? So greater sac is the larger main part. Okay, it is the larger main part. It is the larger main part, and the lesser sac is the smaller part. Fine. Now imagine that, look at this diagram. So this is a diagram which is representing lesser sac and a greater sac. So the area which is present over here, the larger main area, this area is known as the greater sac, and the area behind this greater sac, okay, this is the lesser sac. So what is written over here in lesser sac is that behind the stomach, lesser omentum and the liver, it is also known as omental bursa. Very important question for MCQ, that what is omental bursa? So omental bursa is lesser sac. Fine. Now the two sacs. Now one is the greater sac and another one is behind it is the lesser sac. So this is the greater sac and iske piche is the lesser sac. So these two sacs are now able to communicate with each other through a foramen which is known as epiploic foramen. As you can see over here, it is known as epiploic foramen, or it is also known as the foramen of Winslow and also known as the opening into the lesser sac. Fine. This is the lesser sac and foramen of Winslow, and this is the opening into the lesser sac. So there are three synonyms for epiploic foramen, foramen of Winslow, opening into the lesser sac. Fine. Moving forward. Now this diagram will clear all the doubts which are present first. So the outer wall and within is this cavity. Okay. Now as you can see over here, this is the greater sac. This is the greater sac. Fine. Then this is the lesser sac. See, this is stomach. This which you can see over here. See it. This area is stomach. Then this is the vertebrae. So this is basically the posterior part. This part is posterior part. This is the posterior part, while this is the anterior part. Okay, this is the anterior part. This is posterior. This is anterior. Fine. So this is vertebrae. This is stomach. Now the part which is present in front of the stomach, the part that is present in front of the stomach is known as what? It is known as the greater sac. That is why this entire big area present over here is, while the area that is present behind the stomach is known as lesser sac. So the smaller area which is present over here is known as the lesser sac. Now these two sacs are communicating with each other through this epiploic foramen which is present over here. This is the epiploic foramen. It is the epiploic foramen that is present over here. Fine. Now what are the functions of the folds of peritoneum? So the functions of the folds of peritoneum are movement of the viscera. So how does it helps in movement of the viscera is the slippery surface for the movement of abdominal organ or for the purpose of peristalsis. It is important. Second most important function for it is that it is having a function of protection of viscera. Like for the lungs we have the pleura, वैसे ही for the abdominal cavity we have peritoneum. So its function is protection of viscera. So it contains what? It contains phagocytotic cells. It contains lymphocytes present in the peritoneal fluid. Very important. What is present in peritoneal fluid? So lymphocytes are present in the peritoneal fluid. Fine. Then the greater omentum has power to move towards the site of infection. Any kind of infection which is occurring in the abdominal cavity, there is this greater omentum which is present, and it has the tendency or it has the power or the ability to move towards the site of infection, seal that part and prevent the spread of that infection in the other areas of the abdomen. Hence, this line is very important that the greater omenta or a greater omentum is known as policeman of the abdomen. Very, very important. What is known as the policeman of the abdomen? So, the greater omentum is known as the policeman of the abdomen. Fine. So, the functions are movement of viscera, protection of the viscera. Now, third function of the folds of the peritoneum or the peritoneum is mesothelium, that is absorption of and dialysis. So the mesothelium acts as a semi-permeable membrane. Now as we know, the mesothelium which is present over here is semi-permeable. That is, it does not allow all the types of substances to pass through it, but only certain substances. तो उससे क्या होता है? Fluid from peritoneum can be absorbed to the blood vessels through them, and fluid can be administered through this route. So whenever there is any kind of fluid which has to be administered, so it can be like administered through this route. Fine. Next function is peritoneal dialysis. So peritoneal dialysis, metabolites like urea can be removed from the blood artificially circulating fluids through peritoneal cavity. Then very one of the most important functions of the peritoneum which is present over here is the storage of fats. It can store large amount of fats within it. Fine. Then there is healing power. Mesothelial cells of the peritoneum transform into fibroblast cells which promote healing. Okay. Next is mesothelial. This is the function. Mesothelium cell है वो convert हुआ fibroblast में and then fibroblast got converted and they provide healing. Fine. So whenever we are ending any of the answer in anatomy, it has to be ended with clinical significance or clinical anatomy. So the clinical significance over here of the peritoneum is ascites. Ascites is one of the pathology which is involved with abdominal cavity. So ascites, what is ascites? Ascites is collection of fluid in the peritoneal cavity or even blood. अगर blood होगा तो that will be called as hemoperitoneum. अगर एयर प्रेजेंट होगी तो दैट विल बी कॉल्ड न्यूमोपेरिटोनियम. वैसे ही अगर फ्लूइड एक्यूमुलेटेड है तो उसको हम बोलेंगे ascites. उसका कॉज क्या होता है? There are various pathology which is involved in ascites. So first is liver cryosis, second is tubercular peritonitis, third is congestive cardiac failure, and fourth is malignant infiltration of peritoneum. So these are certain. Any of these cause can lead to ascites. Then second pathology involved is paracentesis. Now paracentesis is basically a type of intervention, or we can say a type of procedure which is used to remove the fluid from peritoneal cavity by puncturing the abdominal wall. So in order to remove this fluid, in case of ascites, a puncture is made in the abdominal cavity and this process is done. So that is known as pericentesis. Then next is peritonitis. Peritonitis का मतलब होता है inflammation of peritoneum. So whenever there is osis term which is involved or itis term which is involved, it is for the inflammation. So inflammation of peritoneum is known as peritonitis. Next is laparoscopy. Examination of the peritoneal cavity using a laparoscope is known as laparoscopy. So for peritonitis, certain more information is provided over here. Ki by an opening in the closed gastrointestinal tract in abdominal cavity, example by gastric ulcers. So how can this peritonitis occur? So it can either occur through any kind of like through anterior abdominal, any kind of infection through vagina or urine cavity or fallopian tube. So any kind of infection or any kind of intervention or opening which is giving a route for the infection to reach into the abdominal cavity and cause peritonitis can be a cause for it. So this is again a part which is showing over here. See, this is the stomach, liver, transverse colon, pancreas and small intestine. So all the area which is present, see this is anterior and that one is posterior. So in front of the stomach is the greater sac, then in front of the liver is also greater sac, and behind this is the lesser sac, और इसके through जो जा रहा है that is known as the what is used is epiploic foramen. Okay. Rest of the that's it for the part 2. Actually this is part 1 for the fold of peritoneum. आगे there are certain contents which are present over here, like there will be gut. How is the gut formation actually happening? So for the gut formation we will be seeing the development of the gut into foregut, midgut and hindgut in the next lecture. And till that time, do like, share and subscribe the channel. Thank you.